วัสดีค่ะ
Hi everyone, thanks for joining me again. This is Peter, you're watching Thailand Bound, and if you haven't been here before, I talk about all things Thailand. Okay, so on today's upload, I have a guest. I've got Michael Parat. He's made a few videos with me before. Today, the subject of today's video is conducting business in the Kingdom of Thailand. Now, like any other country, there are different rules, different pitfalls, different positive points. Michael's company operates worldwide. He does a lot of work in Southeast Asia, and he spent a lot of time in Thailand. Now, I worked in Thailand for a number of years, but the difference with me is I worked for an international hotel chain, and what that meant was a lot of things got done for me, so I didn't have to apply for my own work permit, things like that. That was all done for me. But when you go out to the kingdom on your own and you want to make a business or expand your business, then obviously there's a lot of things you've got to research, find out. There's a lot of positive points, a lot of pitfalls. Michael, as I say, has a lot of experience working in Thailand, working with the Thais, and I'd like to bring Michael straight in now. So this is Michael Parrot. I hope I pronounced that properly. Sometimes I don't. I've had Michael here as a guest before, very knowledgeable guy, and I'll ask him some questions, and hopefully you guys, if you're thinking about going out to Thailand, opening a business, or perhaps expanding your current business, hopefully you'll pick up some tips today. Hello Michael, how are you?
Hello, I'm doing great.
It's been a while since we made a video. I think the last video we made together was on the balcony of the Staple Lodge in Sukhumvit Soi 8 when we were talking about the Thailand Pass. Do you remember that one?
December.
Yeah, that was back in December. It's gone so quickly, hasn't it? Okay, so how long were you actually, this trip, how long, because I know you were planning to go to Vietnam as well. And why don't you tell everybody a little bit about what you do? Your company name is up there. It's AGV Sports Group Incorporated. What is it exactly? I know, but why don't you tell everybody what it exactly is you do around Asia?
Well, we're a company that produces safety apparel, mostly for motorcyclists' use. The apparel is made all in Asian countries, in China, in Vietnam, Indonesia, even Pakistan. We have a factory in Chonburi, Thailand, that was making body armor, which isn't really a fabric. It's a sewn product like what's made in Vietnam and the other countries. It's made mainly with machines. So it's one of the few products that of our range that could be produced in Thailand. And then pre-COVID, we had a distributor that sold our products in Thailand. So those are really two totally separate business operations. One, going there to work with the manufacturer producing components of a particular product that's sold all over the world, and two, talking to the distributor that's selling to retail Thai stores across the country, importing the products and then selling them in Thailand.
Sure. So when you work in these different Southeast Asian countries, when you're dealing with problems that we'll get into in a little bit, but when you're working in different countries, because I know you go to Cambodia, do you go to Cambodia?
No,
you don't go to Cambodia. Where is it? I know you go to Vietnam. What are the other countries in
China?
Asia? China,
Vietnam, China, Vietnam, Indonesia, Pakistan is where the factories are. The head offices of many of these companies are in Korea, because Koreans mostly own all of it, because originally 50, 60 years ago, these factories were in South Korea. Right. And then for raw materials, most of the leather comes from Brazil. So South Korea, China, Vietnam, Thailand, Indonesia, Pakistan, and Brazil are the countries where I'm working the most in to produce the product. Then selling the product is basically Western countries.
Okay, so, well, thank you for answering that one. So that's quite a few countries. There's a few there that I haven't been to. I've never been to Pakistan. Spent some time in India, but not Pakistan. So when you're doing business in these different countries, are some of them easier to get things done than other countries? And where would Thailand stand in that that question?
Well, they all have challenges, and I think a lot has to depend on the type of business that you're doing, because a particular industry could have all sorts of challenges for a particular country that another industry might not. So my business of making motorcycle apparel would be quite different than if I was in the business of alcohol or pharmaceutical products or some other product. So you have to really, I can only answer for the clothing business, which is pretty narrow. There's some problems are just universal problems of when you're working outside of your culture and language that you'd find almost in other countries, any other country. And then some issues are related specifically to that country. Pakistan may have certain issues, Thailand may have other different issues. So you have this whole myriad of problems that are maybe country specific or maybe just specific to working outside of your own world. And you have to sort of figure all that out.
But what would you say are, for somebody who's never been out to Thailand to do business, maybe they've been out there on vacation, but they've got their own business in their own country and they're thinking about going out to Thailand and kind of expanding their business in some way. What would be the biggest challenges to overcome for somebody who's not used to doing business in Thailand?
Well, the first thing that I noticed is just the different perception of time and sense of urgency. Even within the U.S., it depending on the area of the country. The southern United States works at a little bit different, slower speed, and probably the Northeast is the fastest, which is close to the area where I'm at. So I'm used to working at a really fast pace, and things in Thailand, both at a company level, a government level, and at an individual personal level, don't work at the speed that I'm used to working at. You also have to be aware of the holidays. I've never seen a country that has so many holidays, and they come at the most random times and sometime in the middle of the week. And you have to be aware of this when you're working on really tight timelines, because you're not going to change a culture and a country's holiday schedule because of your business needs.
Yeah, that's a good point, actually. I think, I was trying to put myself in somebody's shoes. If I had a business, I was going out to Thailand, I was trying to, I was just thinking in the back of my mind, they're the sort of issues I would face. And one of them I hadn't thought about, and you're absolutely right, is the holidays, because they have so many religious holidays, regular holidays. And like you said, they come in all different times of the year. So if you're going out there for the first time, I think it's a good idea to print out a calendar of every holiday they have.
But what's really, it's not that the varying times of the year isn't so bad. What's crazy from my point of view is, as an American, is our holidays are always moved to a Friday or a Monday. But Thailand will have random holidays, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Thursdays. One week they can have a holiday on a Tuesday, then the next week they have one on a Wednesday or Thursday. And so it really breaks up the work schedule, because they're 1 week they're off on Tuesday, then they come back to work for a few days and they're off on the weekend, then they come back for 2 days and they're off on a Wednesday. So the holiday affects more than just that day, because if they have off Saturday, Sunday, then they have a work day Monday, Tuesday, and they have a holiday on Wednesday, they may very well take off the Monday and Tuesday so they can go away for a 4 or 5 day trip. And you have, even though that's not officially a holiday that's on your calendar, you have to use common sense to be aware that Thai people do this because of how the calendar works out. Whereas in the US, they would automatically just move the holiday to a Monday or Friday to give people a 3 day weekend. Then you figure they maybe take a 4 day, but you can sort of have an understanding what the big holidays are. And we also don't have so many. There's so many holidays in Thailand that you really have to put it on a calendar. Like you said, you'll never be able to figure it out and remember it all.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, it's pretty similar in the UK. Most of our extra holidays, we've got the regular holidays like you have in the States, Christmas, that sort of thing. But our extra holidays, what we call bank holidays, they're generally on a Monday. So they just make the weekend longer. We don't have kind of like midweek days like you're explaining. But we'll talk about a few of the positive points later on. But for now, so let me just ask you on this point of the holiday. So if you were out there and for some reason it slipped your mind, or you forgot there was going to be a 3 day holiday, and you've got a work schedule that you've planned before you go out there. If you get out there and you get caught, you get tripped up because you didn't realize there was 3 days holiday. I mean, how do you handle it? Do you just think, oh, well, I've got an extra 3 days off and enjoy it? Or do you try to get work done in some other way anyway, like work on your laptop and just try to make the best of it? How do you actually handle it?
No, that doesn't affect me when I'm there. Where it affects me is when I'm here and we're trying to move shipments and it's logistics reasons. When I'm there, I'm very aware of exactly what's going on. It's mainly just all year long when you're trying to pick up stuff at factory, get it to port or airport, and trying to keep things moving, that it screws things up. When I'm there, I'm aware of what is their holiday. You can't hardly not notice, because everyone talks about their holidays. There's usually signs, banners, and it's when you're there, you're pretty much aware of what holidays are coming up.
Yeah, sure. Okay, so the guy's there, he's got his business, he's going to head out to Thailand. He's printed out the holidays, he knows all the holidays, he's not going to get tripped up like that. What other things is he going to face? Negative in a roundabout way. What problems is he going to face that he wouldn't face in, say, Europe or America?
Well, every country has their own cultural differences that affect the way people work, the way they view an employer, boss, manager. You also have the legal aspect, which is what are the laws of that country as far as contractors, subcontractors, employees. And you have to be aware of what the actual law is and what the practical working situation is, because the poorer a country is, the greater the difference there is between the written law and the practical way that things are actually done in the country. So any country that I do business in, I always talk to an attorney for that country, and I always talk to a successful foreign business owner in that country to try to understand both what the technical legal way is and what the realistic way is that most people do, and what the consequences are for doing either instead of the other, because it's a risk analysis. Sometimes the risk of doing it the way that everyone's doing it as opposed to the legal way is small enough that it's worth it. Other times you look at it and say, okay, it's not likely to get caught, but if I do get caught, the consequences are so bad that personally, I don't want to take that chance. So people make a mistake a lot of times of trying to be cheap and not wanting to talk to an attorney, but I would never do business in any country without at least sitting down for a couple hours and talking to a good business attorney before I did anything to understand what they have to say. And then equally talk to a successful business owner that's been there at least 10 years and have them tell you their side. And whatever matches up is the same. Those are the things you really need to pay attention to, because when you have the attorney and the business person telling you, watch out for these things, you know, those are the things you really have to be careful of.
Okay, so that's a good point. That will lead me straight into another question, is if somebody is taking all this on board and they think, yeah, good point, I didn't think of that, I'll do that. How would they go about finding an attorney, or as we call them in the UK, solicitors or lawyers, whatever you want to call it? So the guy's sitting at home in Australia, he's got his business, he's going to head out to Thailand. How does he go about finding a decent lawyer without being kind of scammed or ripped off? Because you know the stories.
In Thailand, it's actually pretty easy because there's a number of British, American, and Australian attorneys that are over there working in law firms where there's some American, British, or Australian attorneys and Thai attorneys, and their whole firm is dedicated to serving international customers. If you do a simple Google search, they'll pop right up. They handle everything from visas, work permits, employment issues, visa, all kinds of different things. So it's easy. It's much easier than like Vietnam or Indonesia. It takes a little bit more work.
That's a good point. So before we move on to the sort of positive points, is there anything else that could trip people up that they might not be aware of? I mean, I'm not talking about things like scams, because you get that in America anyway. But, you know, if you're going out to Thailand to do business with that American mindset, is there anything else that could trip people up?
It could trip them up, but it may surprise them. I do pretty good research any place before I go. I don't just get off the plane in a foreign country and not know. I usually know quite a bit, oftentimes more than the local people I'm talking to. And I was aware of the culture and the rules and laws regarding the royal family in Thailand. But when I got there and actually saw in real life examples of it, it surprised me that it was even stronger even than I had read on the internet. And it's something I have very strong opinions of, but I don't discuss at all when I'm in Thailand with even my closest Thai friends. If they want to talk about it when they visit me in the United States, I'll talk about it, but not when I'm in Thailand. It's usually you worry about political things, like, you know, if you're in a foreign country, you'd worry about like criticizing the government. That's surprisingly not the problem. You can criticize the Thai government pretty much without any problems, you know, as long as you're not being slanderous, you know, being libelous or slanderous. But the royal family and anything about their religion, I would just stay away from. Nothing good can come from that.
Yeah, and another thing people might not realise, Michael, it is actually illegal. There are there are laws about saying things about other businesses. As you know, in the UK or America, as an example, you can say whatever you want about anything. It's called freedom of speech. But there are laws in Thailand that are different to where we come from. Why don't you explain the two different ones that you know of and I know of? Maybe you'll explain it better than me.
Well, in the US and the UK, you have defamation and libel laws. One covers what's said verbally, one covers what's in writing. And in Thailand, just the burden of what reaches that level is quite low. In the US, it's almost impossibly high. If you're a public figure, you could say anything about them, and you can't do anything. In Thailand, it's quite a bit lower. I never had a problem with that. I think you can criticize businesses if you're doing it in an appropriate way. But when you get into harassment or saying false things or like stalking, I mean, that's where you get in. When you're doing things repetitively, if you have a problem with a business and you say what your problem is and you say it in a polite and articulate way, that's not going to be a problem. The problem is when you're nasty, hateful, or say false things, or just do it repetitively, like you're posting on their Facebook page or over and over and over again.
Yeah, I mean, there is a couple of cases that stand out. One in particular, without getting into this subject in too much detail, but there was a guy, he was very big on Facebook or YouTube, something like that, and he went into a hotel. He wasn't happy that he had to pay a corkage charge on a bottle that he brought into the restaurant, and he basically went off and wrote, he didn't just write a bad review, he wrote lots and lots and lots of bad reviews. And eventually he actually got arrested for, I think they call it defamation, and he had to make a public apology to the hotel management.
I'm aware of it. He was writing on a hotel review website, which obviously would affect their business, and it was hard and it was repetitive and it was over the top.
Yeah,
especially for what happened. I mean, what happened was, okay, it was not good customer service, but it wouldn't justify the extent of energy that this guy put into his.
No, but it's just to make people aware that there is actually a law, a defamation law. So you should really stay clear of that. Let's move on now. Let's talk a little bit about investment, because I know with your business you don't necessarily invest funds into Thailand. I might be wrong. You can tell me about that. But what about these guys who go over there on a smaller scale, and they might want to open a bar, for instance, in Pattaya, or some kind of small retail outlet, the smaller sort of scale things. There is certain people who have gone there and invested money unwisely in other people's names, for instance, and they've lost quite a lot of money.
Oh, it wouldn't be hard to lose everything, for sure. Most of these developing countries have laws that do not, it's not like Europe or the US. I mean, they do not allow a foreigner to own more than 49% of a business. So you have a national of that country that's basically in control, and it's highly unlikely you're going to find a partner that's going to be a 50-50 person. Usually the foreigner is basically the 100% person, and the other person is just the paper legal solution, which is very risky, because as soon as that relationship goes bad for whatever reason, you have a problem. And a lot of the people that go there that have the small businesses, that other person is their girlfriend or their wife. And that is a really bad idea.
Putting everything in their girlfriend's name, the relationship goes sour, and they lose everything. So that's something people have to think about. You're quite right there.
Yeah, so I don't personally do that in any country. I don't invest in any country. That's why the Koreans own all the factories in all those Asian countries, because European, American, Canadian, Australian companies don't want to be building factories in that area of the world. The Koreans are closer, feel more comfortable with it, and they live there too. They have staff that lives in those countries, and it's not like they're visiting.
So is it possible to kind of get round those percentage numbers by, say, involving two Thai people? So can the foreigner own 49%, and instead of one Thai owning 51%, you'd have two Thais, so each one of them would actually only own probably around 25-26%, so they don't have an overall share. And perhaps you could even go further and do it on paper where those two people don't actually know each other in real life.
But yes, and if I was going to invest there, what I would probably do is do it with a minimum of 3 local people, and pick different kinds of people and try to pick people that I didn't think were going to collude or collaborate if there was a problem, and that they wouldn't be, working together. So I have thought that through, just from, because I talk to some of these people, especially the ones that have their girlfriends owning 51%. But yeah, so as long as the Thai nationals own the majority, you can divide it up any way you want.
And for the business that you've done over the years in Thailand, have you come across problems with people trying to get one over on you? What's your experience, Michael?
I had no problems in manufacturing at all, because those factories are owned by Koreans and they manage the staff in Thailand. I had some issues with the distribution, but I didn't put them at a level of like the people trying to steal from me, mainly just trying to cut some corners just to make a little bit, like they were exporting some stuff to Malaysia and Vietnam, which is not allowed under their contract. And so it's almost like gray market kind of stuff. So you always have to keep an eye out, but that's not really particular just to Thailand. That would be the same problem in any Southeast Asian country. They're always going to try to make some extra money any way they can.
What would you say are the advantages of working in doing business in a country like Thailand as opposed to America? What things stand out to you as beneficial to you?
The major thing for me, for my business, is the cost of labor for what they can produce, because we don't have anything sewed in Thailand because they're too expensive for sewing. But for machine-made products, injection molding, or that assembly, something that's at a level above sewing that can be done in Vietnam or Pakistan or Indonesia, the labor rates are good. You can't make anything in Europe and the United States unless it's an expensive product. Clothing, it's not practical to make clothing unless you're making it for movie stars to make it in Europe or the United States. It's just not possible.
I was going to say to you what you touched on just then. I was going to say one of the benefits would be spending time in a country like Thailand. Obviously, there's some beautiful beaches. The food's fantastic. There's some great entertainment, some great venues, nightlife. There isn't much you can't find, especially in a city like Bangkok. But that can work against some people. I've seen it myself in the past where guys have gone out to do their own business, one-man bands, small businesses. And what happens, maybe they've spent a week or two in Thailand on vacation in the past. They've decided that they could do some business out there. But because it's such a great, Bangkok we're talking about now, because it's such a great city for the entertainment and everything within that entertainment, I've seen guys actually they've actually lost track of what they've gone out for. So they've gone out to work, but they've been kind of sidetracked by what Bangkok has to offer. And it's kind of gone down a slippery slope. Have you witnessed anything like that yourself with other people?
Absolutely. Years before I even went to Thailand or had any interest in going to Thailand, I had a good friend in California that had a business where he made these very high-end bicycle wheels for racing bicycles. And he found them. He was making them in the US. They were very expensive. He had a patent on them. And he got to a production level where if he moved them overseas, he could, really increase the volume. So he looked at a couple different countries. I don't remember all of them, but I know Taiwan and Thailand were one of them. And, he went to Thailand. And of course, because of all the extracurricular activities, he decided on Thailand instead of Taiwan. And he went there, and each trip he went, he ended up going longer and longer and longer. And within a year or two, he basically was living there. And make a long story short, he ended up bankrupting his business, losing everything, getting divorced, and ended up in jail, and ended up having to bail him out of a Thai prison and bring him back to the United States because even his own family wouldn't do it because they were so upset about how he had just thrown everything away in a period of less than 36 months.
People don't realize how alluring the Bangkok can be once you're actually there, the things that are on offer, and it can trip a lot of people up. So I think if you do go out there to do business, I think you'll agree with me, Michael, you've got to go out there with a plan and pretty much stick to it. You can enjoy what Thailand's got to offer, but you've got to make sure you keep a leash on yourself.
Yeah, and he was even in a worse area. He was just south of Pattaya, going towards Rayong. So he was like on the beach area and just lost all focus of the hard. I mean, he was making a product that's a machining business that's like ideal for like Germany, Taiwan, China. And being in an entertainment environment like where he was in Thailand, it just totally distracted him from everything he needed to do to make that business successful.
Sure, sure.
Last place I want to be is in a Thai prison.
I've never seen the inside of a Thai prison, but I believe they're not too pleasant.
No.
No. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about work permits and visas, because as you know, if you're going on vacation, you simply turn up at the airport. From most countries, you'll get a stamp for 30 days, or I think it's 28 now. But obviously, if you're going there to work, you do need to get a work permit.
No, because for what I'm doing, I don't need a work permit because I'm not working in the sense of the Thai government. You know, working means you're getting paid. You know, it's my company. I own the company. I'm going to check on my sellers and the manufacturer there.
Yeah,
that's not. I'm not receiving pay for it. I don't have a boss. I don't have an office. It's that kind of stuff is not really affected by work permit. But I can say, based on my experience in any country, that working in a country without a work permit is a highly risky thing unless you don't want to worry about getting banned and not let back in the country for a long time.
Yeah. This is a thing. I mean, I've seen this myself, where there's a lot of guys, for some reason, they think they can go out on a retirement visa, or they can go out to Thailand on a kind of long-term vacation visa, and they can just work anyway. They might want to go out there for a year and do some. I'll give you an example how people can get caught. I've mentioned this on my channel before. I know you're my guest, but you might find this story quite entertaining. So years ago in Phuket, there were several diving schools. There probably are still diving schools there now, but back then there were a bunch of diving schools, paddy diving, and most of the foreign guys who ran those, they were kind of on vacation visas. They weren't on work permits. And one of the guys who ran a particular dive center, he upset somebody in the local community who decided to look into his work permit status. They found out that he was on some kind of a visa that didn't allow him to work, and he was basically deported. And what they did after that, they had a cull. They went around all the dive centers in Phuket, and there were several that were closed down, or at least the owners who set them up were deported. So yeah, I think it's very risky when you go out to, especially Thailand nowadays. It's not a banana republic. It's very switched on in a lot of ways, and it's a big risk to take.
The only laws that I tend to not put a high priority on in Thailand are traffic laws. Any laws about business, or certainly any criminal activity or speech, or talking about the royal family or anything, I'm like the most law-abiding person. Traffic laws, I don't even obey traffic laws in the United States. So, I don't obey traffic laws anywhere, but I don't do things that are out of bounds for what local people do. And actually, I don't even go as far as what they do. I'm within the limits of what they're doing. And I have frankly been shocked that in all the years I've been going to Thailand and the thousands and thousands of kilometers I've ridden all over that country, that I've never, ever got a traffic citation for anything at any time. I don't know what you'd have to do there to get a traffic citation. I really don't.
Yeah, and I know you have ridden all over Thailand. I want to touch on something completely different before we go, but before I'll make a note of that so I don't forget. But before I talk about that, so let's break it down. Let's put it in a nutshell, as they say. So somebody who's thinking about going out to Thailand, we haven't rehearsed this, so I might be putting you on the spot here, Michael. I'd like to ask you to give me your 3 top don'ts, followed by your 3 top do's. So in other words, if you are going out to Thailand to do business, what's the top 3 things you'd recommend not to do, and then the other side, the top 3 things that you would recommend. I don't know if you're able to answer that, being put on the spot.
Well, the first thing that's really particular to Thailand, more than just countries in general, is to be aware that what you might consider normal management or business procedure in your country could be considered being critical or rude in Thailand. They have a whole different way of looking at guidance, suggestion, management, discipline, any of these things. And it's a whole different world. So I would advise anyone doing business in Thailand to do some research, spend some time, meet some Thai people, do some research on the internet and understand that you can't do business in Thailand like you do business in the UK or the US in terms of managing people or criticizing or complaining about work or timelines. You have to handle it in a different way for Thailand. That is number one above everything.
Okay.
Number two is sort of related to that, but a little bit more specific, is I think it's just a good idea to avoid political, religious, or anything to do with the Thai royal family, and you'll just be way better off. And the third thing is just understand that, like in most countries where the climate is hot, I don't care where it is in the world, it could be in Mexico or Central America or anywhere in Africa, that things work on a slower pace. They don't work quite as fast. Thailand's not Germany, and you have to accept that. You're not going to change it. And like you said earlier, make a calendar, be aware of the holidays, and just be aware in general that it's highly unlikely you're going to have employees or contractors working that are going to work at the speed that you would have someone in your own country work at that same speed. Those are the three things that I would say. I say on the positive things, I mean, the main reason that I went to Thailand to do business for my business is because it's a big growing motorcycle market. That wouldn't apply necessarily to other people's businesses. You have to look at what it is you're doing, and if Thailand is growing or stagnant or declining in that. Motorcycling in all Southeast Asia and Vietnam, Malaysia, Indonesia, Thailand is growing. And so that is a strong reason to me personally, but might not apply to anyone else. As far as the manufacturing side of my business, the reason I went there is because the Koreans went there, and they went there because for that kind of technical work, which is more complicated than what could be done in Pakistan or Vietnam or Indonesia, that work could be done in Thailand at a labor rate that was still far less expensive than in Europe or the US or Australia. So those are really the two main reasons. I didn't really have a third. I could really focus on those were the two reasons. That's the fact that the food is great. That's all nice, but I wouldn't make a business decision based on the food or
no. That's just the cherry on the cake, isn't it? Yeah. So look, I don't want to get into this point too much, but just quickly, what would you say? Because working in China, I've actually spent about 3 years in China, and I brought you on here to talk about your experiences, so I'm not going to talk about it. But as far as working in China and working in Thailand, which one of those two countries would you say is the more difficult?
For my product, working in China is very easy. But
easy.
For me, very easy. I never had any issues working in China. But once you get out of work and you're like in everyday life, to me, China is very difficult because everything's regulated. There's cameras everywhere. You can't do anything without being controlled and regulated. So I much prefer Vietnam or Thailand because I like to be free, and I don't like to have like the nanny state watching me with 85,000 different cameras and being fined for this, that, and the other thing. I mean, literally, you could like make a parking infraction and just have more of a problem than in Thailand if you're going 100 miles an hour with the speed limit. So, but again, that's me. Most people, when they go to China and do business, they're not driving or riding. They're going to do business. They go back to the hotel. They leave the country. They're not really living. And you live there, so you know what it's like. But it's changed a lot. I don't know how long it's been since you've been in China, but I can see it even over the. I was in China as recently as January 2020 at the start of COVID, and in Shenzhen. And there must be 800 billion cameras just in that city everywhere, even in like the parking spaces of shopping malls. I mean, it's like 1984. It's like, and for me, that makes it unpleasurable. For another person, they might not care.
Okay. Yeah, sure. Good points. I don't like the cameras myself. London's pretty much saturated with cameras as well now. Yeah. It's something we're going to have to learn to live with, unfortunately. everything that's been going on recently with the Thailand pass, I don't want to get into this in too much depth because I think most people are fed up of hearing about it now. But so with everything that's gone on over the last 2 years with that Thailand pass, now obviously it's getting easier and they're saying that they are going to drop it. But as far as conducting business in Thailand, will business improve now for you? Can you see any improvement?
Well, the manufacturing aspect of the business there wasn't really affected at all. It was affected a little bit when they had the short 14-day lockdowns, but pretty insignificant over a 2.5-year period. But what was devastated was the retail side, which is totally unrelated to the manufacturing. And that's going to take many, many, many years because so much of the Thai economy is based on tourism, and they really underestimated the effect of their regulations, and they also underestimated how quickly people would come back once they relaxed them and now will release them. I don't care if they end every regulation completely in July. It'll take many, many years, if ever, to get back to the numbers they were at in 2019. And when the general public of Thailand, the 60, 70 million people population aren't making as much money, they're not buying as much stuff in retail stores and malls. So it's that simple. So it's going to be a long, slow pull out.
I think it's going to be pretty tough for a lot of people in many countries around the world for the next sort of year or two. We'll have to keep our fingers and toes crossed and hope we see more positive than negative things. Michael, I'd like to thank you today for coming on the channel again. It's always good to have you on here. And if you're one of those people who are going out to do business in Thailand, I hope you've picked up a few points from Michael. Generally, Michael, it is a great country to go out and do business with. I know some of the issues you touched on, we're talking about timekeeping and things like that. You know, it's the same in the UK. If I said, I'll meet you at 10 a.m., generally people will be there at 10 a.m. Whereas in Thailand, it's kind of sabai, you know, maybe it will be 10 or maybe it'll be 10:30. But generally speaking, it's probably, would you say it's a good place to do business?
Yeah, I mean, depending on the business you're in, for sure. There's certain businesses that, you know, are ideal for Thailand. If you're getting into something really highly technical and you're going to move your own staff there, it would be good. If you were going to go there and rely on a Thai company entirely, I wouldn't recommend that. But like I said, the manufacturing that I deal with is completely run by Korean staff that lives there, and the company is based in Seoul. So, you know, I don't have those kind of issues that someone, if they're going to open up a bar or a small restaurant would have. They're going to have a whole different set of problems, but nothing that can't be sorted out if they just slow down, do the research, and spend a little bit of money, because the money they think they're saving at the beginning, they'll lose 1,000-fold later on. It's much better to spend the money up front and get everything sorted out before you step into it.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, because most of the people that I've seen who have gone out to Thailand and invested, the ones who have lost everything, they've come really, you know, it's ended in a bad way. Most of them haven't done their research, and there've been these kind of guys that you're talking about who maybe want to go over and open a bar or a small restaurant or something, and they don't do any research. They just go out there, transfer their cash. They've got a Thai girlfriend that they totally trust, and you know the rest of the story. We've heard it.
And who knows what she's told them and how much she's encouraged them. So yeah, you have to be very careful.
Exactly. Yeah. Okay. Well, look, Michael, it's been very, very interesting. I've learned one or two things as well, and I'm sure we'll see you back on this channel, because you must have been on here probably 3 or 4 times at least now. So I'm sure we'll see you sometime in the future. Do you know when you're next out in Thailand again?
I leave for Bangkok on July 5th.
Well, then, because I'm planning to go out there towards the end of July. I'm hoping this time to stay out for a month or 2 months at least. And then
I'll probably be coming back in August. So when I come back, you'll probably be there.
So hopefully we'll do something again. But for today, Michael, thank you again for being a guest on the channel. I hope people have learned. And yeah, good luck with business in Thailand.
All right. Thank you. Have a good evening.
Okay, so thank you to Michael there. That's Michael Parrott, and his company is AGV. Okay, so I hope you learned from that video, guys. If you're going out to Thailand for the first time to perhaps open a smaller business or you want to expand on your current business, hopefully Michael gave a few tips that will help everybody out there. Right, that's it for this upload for today, guys. Once again, I'll be back 9 p.m. Friday for my live stream. I hope you can come along and join in. It's a lot of fun usually, and if you're not really into the live streams, then I will be uploading some more stories, viewer stories on Saturday. But for now, thanks again for watching this video, and I'll catch up with everybody soon.